Welcome into the Sports Source. This segment, we got Phil Cobble, Fine Homes and Land. Check out this brand new listing from Phil and his team out in Farragut, the Hickory Woods subdivision. A welcoming 2-story, all-brick, traditional home, 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, more than 2,700 square feet. Whether you are buying or selling, turn to the residential real estate leaders in East Tennessee, Phil Cobble, Fine Homes and Land. Check out philcobblehomes.com to learn more about that home, which is just fresh on the market, or many more that they have available right now. All right. The hype for Tennessee season is nuts, crazy. It just keeps getting higher and higher. Every week we come out here and some other new publication has them ranked higher. This week, Athlon came out and put Tennessee number 7. Now, I don't think anybody's, at the end of the year, they're not checking Athlon for their ratings, but just another top 10 projection for the Volunteers. You also had the Golden Nugget Casino in Las Vegas, which only gets pub one time every year, when in May it puts out its over-under win totals for this college football season. They had Tennessee tied with 3 schools. There's 4 schools in America that they said the over-under is 10 wins. Those schools are Clemson, Florida State, Oklahoma, games past Bob Stoops' Bow Wow, and Tennessee. You may be saying, where's Alabama? They're a paltry 9.5 wins. Tennessee is ahead. Behind those 4, behind Florida State, Clemson, Oklahoma, and Tennessee, Alabama's at 9.5, LSU's at 9.5, Michigan's at 9.5. Now, again, this is bookmaking. As you know, this is about trying to get a lot of money on a lot of teams, so get that. But then you go further, and the one that I find just really stupid. Let's go ahead and put this up. ESPN, they've got a computer ranking system. You have to know this. They come up with a computer ranking for basketball they call BPI, which is nowhere connected to RPI. They push it every year. They make it their number. It doesn't factor with RPI. The NCAA doesn't use it. They did a total quarterback rating that people mock because it is so unprofessional. So their FPI is kind of silly too. So silly, in fact, it says Tennessee should be favored in all 12 of its games this year. In other words, the ESPN computer says 12-0 for the Volunteers. Now, they're saying Tennessee, 59% chance they beat Texas A&M on the road, 55% beat Georgia on the road, 58% beat Alabama at home. It's just gotten silly. I mean, this team could win 10, 11 games. It could. Heck, it could win 12. But as we've discussed the last few weeks, I really think the target for this team is more likely in the 9-3, 10-2 range. And then that's just regular season. Right? Then you get into how many you can stack up or lose later. But I just don't see 12-0 and number 7. What am I missing that everyone else is jumping on? Am I just being negative? And I'll check your tweets after the show. Am I just being negative? Am I just not seeing this correctly? Or is the hype just silly at this point?
I think it's feeding on itself. I think Tennessee got a lot of hype coming out of the bowl game when they just thrashed Northwestern, a word people write but never really say. But Tennessee got a lot of hype coming out of that, and I think it is just built and it's built and it's built because, I mean, Josh Dobbs has been elevated nationally. I read things about him and going, well, I think he's a good quarterback. He's great for the University of Tennessee. I just think that Tennessee is being pushed up. And I think this will push them up when the next round of stuff comes. Because somebody who really doesn't know is going to look at all these numbers and go, well, God, 7, 8, 9, I'm going to put them 6.
Every year there's some trendy team that everyone tries to jump on because it's no fun in this industry if we all just say Alabama number 1 every year. Okay, so there are people that are trying to stand out, and especially with a magazine cover, and they try and throw different things out there. Well, last year Ole Miss, that's kind of a sleeper to win the SEC. Well, they didn't win the SEC. Had a good year that I think Ole Miss fans would be in love with. But they lost 3 games last year. They were not SEC champions. I think sometimes this trendy stuff gets out of hand and it sets false expectations. Ole Miss was wise enough that they still enjoyed a good year. I don't know that after all this, if Tennessee fans are going to say, nah, they didn't win the league. What do you guys think?
Well, I think a couple of things are happening. One, I think there is a real compliment to Tennessee that's taking place. I think there's also an indictment on the SEC East to a lot of people. I think a lot of people are looking at Georgia with Kirby Smart taking over, and they're just skeptical. And then Florida at the end of last season questions at quarterback. So with all their concerns there, and then everybody else, they just completely dismiss that one, I'd say rightfully so. I think after that happens, they immediately jump back to Tennessee.
I can remember back years ago, we used to maybe write an article or something, Bob, and people would say, oh, you're just trying to sell newspapers. Well, sometimes I think they're trying to sell magazines, or they're trying to be different and attract attention and say, and if it does work out to be true, well, boy, we picked that way back in the spring. And I would remind Tennessee fans, if Alabama is the underdog here, remember last year when Alabama went to Georgia and there was all that hype, and Alabama was a road dog and just thrashed Georgia. So I'd be careful. Tennessee can have a very good team and still lose 3 times in this league. You can lose at Texas A&M. Yeah. And what are you, 0-20 against Florida and Alabama? You know, give me a break on some of this.
Okay, most importantly, Chuck, the over-under is 10. Where do you go?
I think it's a push. You know, I think that's about right. I think 10 is about right.
I think 10 smells about right in terms of over-under. The problem is, when you look at it, and there's only 3 other schools in the country they say have that kind of record. Now, you're right. That ties back to the SEC East schedule. West is going to be tougher in everybody's mind on paper. That's why Alabama's probably down a half a tick. Still, 10 looks right in terms of over-under, but when you place it and you look at it and say, oh, so they're one of the top 4 teams in the country, which means they're one of the top 4 chances to get the national championship. No, I'm not buying that. It depends on how you look at it.
But I'm not sure I've seen somebody pick against Tennessee in the East to this way. Has anybody? No. The only person I can think of is Jalen Tabor, who starts at cornerback for Florida.
That's the other
everyone else is buying into the hype for Tennessee.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think that's dangerous. Because the last few years, like, well, nobody's, it's going to be Florida or Georgia that's going to win. And then Missouri came out for a couple of years.
Right.
There's always someone that pops up that you don't expect it. All the people who are just ignoring, we talked about ignoring teams like Appy State earlier. I think there are a lot of people who are underestimating Florida, who's beaten you 1,000 years in a row.
11.
And Georgia.
Right.
I mean, Georgia wasn't a bad team last year.
Georgia was ahead 24-3.
Yeah. So, by the way, do you like that I call that the Purdy dozen instead of the Purdy dozen on that graphic? All right. When we come back, recruiting, injuries, logistics at Bristol, what are real worries? Come on back on the Sports Source.